Good evening, friends of Connecticut River Museum and attendees at Mistletoe and Martini's. I'm Tom Wilcox, and you can recognize that I'm standing on the bow, well, you might not recognize that I'm standing on the bow of the sailing vessel Onrust, the recreation of Adrian Block's vessel of discovery and trade. Many of you, I'm sure, have taken a ride on Onrust and or seen her sailing around the Connecticut River, but I'll bet few of you have been down below to see what is there. And so tonight we're going to be favored with a guided tour by Captain Dan Thompson of the wonderfully atmospheric cabin of Onrust. Come on down and let's have a look.
Hey Tom and everybody, come on down.
This is great, Dan. This is a wonderful sight down here. I assume you're going to give us a little tour, but can I start by asking, how do these guys keep warm when it was in the winter time?
That's a great question, Tom. Yeah, these guys would have been sailing around New England or New Netherlands in pretty cold conditions. And if you get a rainstorm, you're going to get cold or even snow. So what do? You light a fire. And right over here is perhaps Onrust's, we'll call it the jewel of the boat, or the centerpiece. This is a fireplace. These tiles and this iron back were imported from the Netherlands and are hundreds of years in age. Though this boat is only about 10 years old, we are trying to represent a very ancient piece of local history right here. Now, fire in a wooden boat, that sounds kind of dangerous, right? Well, you had to keep it under control. There would have been a crew member stationed here at all times, I'm sure. I would do that. To tend the fire and ensure that everything is going well. You would also cook your meals here. This space that we're in is where the 10 or so crew members on the original vessel would have spent much of their time. They would be in competition, of course, for space, because we would have a lot of animal skins down here. Things like beaver, mink, and otter, but mostly beaver skins. And by the end of the voyage, they'd be piled up to the top of this space. So not a lot of room. At least beaver skins are warm though, so you have that going for you. If the crew were going to sleep, they would probably do it up here in the narrow space in the front of the boat, or the forecastle as the English call it. On top of this chest are two objects that really represent the core mission of Onrust outside of charting and navigating. And we have here a beaver skin, which, might be repellent to some people's modern sensibilities, but this was an incredibly important economic object in the 1600s. These ships were traveling back and forth across the Atlantic to collect large numbers of these. And as I said earlier, there could be piles of these all the way up to the top of the boat, because that's how you're going to make money. Objects like this is what you're exchanging with the native population in order to acquire these skins. They could be pots, pans, knives, axes, anything a local native would find desirable and would like to exchange a nice warm beaver skin for.
That's really interesting, and thanks for that. As I look around and I see big pieces of wood, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about how the boat's put together.
Well, the volunteers who assembled Onrust were pretty strict in adhering to traditional boat building methodology. You'll see all these little circles all over the place. And these are wooden pegs, also known as trunnels or tree nails. And there's another funny word in addition to trunnel. In the middle of the trunnel you have something called a doidle. The trunnel is split and then wedged, which enlarges the peg and really binds it in place. They're actually very, very strong. The only downside is you can't unscrew it like a metal fastener, but we don't think we're going to have to do that. And you can see there's quite a few of them here. They made over 5,000 of these pegs to hold Onrust together.
What's this? What is this piece here called?
That's called a knee. And this is a critical piece of structure. It's reinforcing the deck and connecting the deck to the hull as well. Knees are typically made out of live oak, which is just a different kind of wood that actually grows in this sort of shape. So it's very convenient for this type of structure.
Okay, I give up. What's this strange looking thing?
So that's usually not down here. When we are running, this object, which we affectionately refer to as the chili pepper, is on top of the mast, about 50 feet in the air, and its job is to hold the flag. This pole and the top of it will hold a Dutch flag, symbolizing, of course, Onrust's history. And it's a traditional flag holder, and I should just say a lot of these designs came from pictures, well, drawings really, and paintings of old Dutch boats that were referenced for the building of the project.
So Dan, I gather this is the where Adrian Block, the captain, may have spent his time, and I would love to hear a little bit about some of these objects. But in the 21st century, where we find ourselves, what happens if you're out sailing with passengers and the wind goes away?
Well,
how do you get home?
That's a good question. Well, in Adrian Block's time, you would have just dropped your anchor. But we do have a diesel engine on board this Onrust, and it's right underneath this large box. It takes up some of the space that the captain would have reserved for his semi-private quarters, but it's okay, I don't live on the boat, so I don't need it. And it's a good thing to have the engine. So typically when we go out sailing, we always do try to sail. We put the sails up, and I engage the engine when necessary, getting on and off the dock, or dealing with the wind or current that's not favorable to our progress. But we can use both the engine and the sails when we're out. As far as those objects, Tom, well, remember the job of this boat, the original vessel, that is, was to explore and chart this area, as well as engaging in the fur trade. So right here we have a little writing desk and a copy of Adrian Block's chart that he created of the Connecticut River Valley and parts of Long Island Sound. This chart was developed in 1614 when Adrian Block made his fateful and historic voyage, which took him and his crew up the Connecticut River and through Long Island Sound, exploring it for Europe and perhaps representing first contact between Europe, represented by the Dutch, and the local native populations.
Well, Dan, thanks very much for the tour. That was really informative and fun, and this is a part of the vessel that many people don't see. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. It's my pleasure to share this vessel with people and with the general public, with school kids, with people from all walks of life. But to do that, we have to keep her floating, we have to keep her running. And if you would like to donate to this project, please visit ctrivermuseum.org, and you can find the donate button on the front of that page.
Thanks again.